This is part 2 of me reviewing books that I read this summer. I wanted some feel-good type of books to read. A lot of them are young adult just because they're sweet. The first book that I want to talk about is The Swiss Family Robinson. I grew up watching the old Disney movie from the 60s and I always loved it. So I was like, why haven't I read this book yet? You could totally tell that this is based off of a love for Robinson Crusoe, which I read years ago. It was so good. I love that book. I highly recommend it. But The Swiss Family Robinson is about a family called Robinson. The whole family gets shipwrecked and they all survive. They land on some island. They talk about the different animals that they see, the way that they make a tree house to live in. It's very detailed with lots of things that they do while there. I found it to be kind of boring at times. I'm really sad to say such a thing because I always thought I would love this book beyond reasoning. But I didn't care for it that much. I thought it was good, very well written, great descriptions. The characters didn't really speak to me. I couldn't feel a connection to them. The father is the main character throughout the book. However, it's very wholesome and it's got great family dynamic. I really think that it teaches kids how to work hard and to have responsibilities while they're young. It is a bit outdated, so there are a little bit of things that you have to take with a grain of salt for when it was written. Just keep in mind this book was written in 1812. This Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han is the first book of a 3-part book series. They even made a TV show based off of it. It's about a girl who goes on vacation with her family and her mom's best friend's family every single year. They've grown up together. This year, now that she's nearly 16, she's changed. She's matured. She's had a crush for a while on one of the 2 brothers that are her mom's best friend's sons. Basically, this book is about finding love and having an adventure in the summer. I think my issue with the main character of this book is she's extremely finicky, even though she makes it seem like her heart's desires are for one person only for all time, but she's also a teen girl who just seems to like really not know what she wants. Some of the story just felt unfinished. For this book in particular, it was just like, okay, like if you had read this book when it was coming out, you'd be probably disappointed by the ending and be like, that's it? I just feel this book is way too short. Also, I don't like teenage drinking. It just seems really acceptable. There's like nothing about parents being like, oh, you shouldn't do that. There's like no poo-pooing of it and it just bothers me. I just don't like it. There's like no consequences for bad behavior. For the second book, I felt like this one was like, okay, we're a middle book from a series. So there's always going to be that sort of wanting and longing for something and then you gotta wait for the next book. This one was pretty good. I thought this was better than the first book. I can't really say what it's about because it's an extension to the first book and it might give some things away in case you haven't read this book series, but I really love the perspective that was given in this. You get a lot more from the characters and you feel like more connected and the storyline just fits and feels more complete in this book. We'll Always Have Summer as the last of the 3 books. Now, this one was very interesting considering how it has a time jump of 2 years. And we get to have a new perspective and understanding of what the characters are like. Now they're a little more adult. They're in college. There's some things in their lives that have changed over time. I have a major issue with how extremely forgiving people might be. There's just too much that I can't say because it might give things away. But I did enjoy the ending. It was just like, I wish there was more buildup in the last portions of the book to explain more about, because then there's like another time jump before the very end of the book. And I wanted to know more of that time period. Overall, the series was cute. I think it could have been written a lot better. Rewilding Motherhood. This book, I had a really hard time with. I did not enjoy this book. It was just strange. It is supposed to be through a Christian Catholic understanding about motherhood and just what this author had gone through over time. But some of the things that she said in there were just like a little out there and I was just not enjoying it. I wanted to, but hey, maybe you'd like it a lot better than I. This book I'm still reading. I actually started reading this book to my sons at the like date that it actually says in here, like some August date. So when I was reading it, I was like, that's kind of weird because that's like the date that it is, or it was near that date. So it's like going into the school year. It's set in New York City, where there is this statue that is in a courtyard of a library. The head goes missing, and it's all about this young girl who is about to start, I believe, 5th grade, and she doesn't really have friends, and her mom works at the library, and she has her whole life there at the library. Not many people go to it, and it's in turmoil where they're thinking about maybe getting rid of it, and she wants to fight for it. And when this head goes missing, she feels like a part of herself goes missing too. It's really fun, and my sons are enjoying it. Even though they're older teenagers, they're liking it, and including the baby, he reacts to it as well. Flower Heart, I loved this book. I didn't know if I would. I've seen so many different YouTubers talk about this book lately, and I was like, all right, let me give it a chance. I love flowers. Summertime has lots of flowers. I said, hey, this is a summery book. So it's about a young woman. She has magic powers, but she doesn't really know how to control them too well. She causes some kind of curse on her own father, and she's really devastated because he is in need of help. So her childhood friend, who knows how to control his magic and is a wizard, decides to try to teach her how to control it. But in the process, you learn a lot more about the two characters, their connection to each other, and also what she gets to find out about her own self. It's very beautifully written. It's a cute fantasy book. I wasn't sure at first because I don't really like to read books about witches so much, but if you think about the fact that it's like a completely fantasy world, they're mainly talking about making medicines throughout it, not even doing magic. But regardless, I really thought the characters were likable and fun. This one I would probably even reread at one point in my life. It was just really cute, and not just because of this cover. This cover is really cute too. Like if you had to have some sort of classic story that you could go back to in time to reread, kind of like an Anne of Green Gables situation, this one would be on your list. A Girl of the Limberlost. I watched some, I don't know if it was on Hallmark or some sort of version of this story I had on VHS years ago in like the early 90s, and I watched it a couple times growing up. The first book from this series is actually called Freckles. This is the sequel, but it has like pretty much nothing to do with the first book. They do mention the first book's character, but this is basically, you could read this as a standalone book. This is about a young woman who wants to go to high school. This was written in 1909, so you have to think about the fact that there might have been some kids in that time period that weren't able to continue on in high school. She really wanted to go, and she loves being able to see moths, butterflies, and different species of insects. She knows so much. She's very, very intelligent, especially about her own forest that has swampland and such. This whole story, she has such a great personality. I definitely recommend this for any young girl who loves reading books about the forest. She has connections to various people who care about her, and some that she has hardships with, such as her own mother. Her mom acts in certain ways. Her mother's a bit selfish at times. It's just really good to teach young girls that their mind is important and that they're very talented and can make their own money. She literally has her own business, and she's only like 16 when she does. Anyway, I love this book. Some Kind of Happiness is a book about a young girl who is being sent to live with her grandmother for the summer. When she is there, she meets cousins she had never met. She had never met her grandparents in general. She finds out that there has been some sort of rift between her father and her grandmother while her father talks to his father on a regular basis. Throughout her time at home growing up, she's been writing a story about the Everwood. In the back of the house where her grandparents live is a great forest. And so she learns with her cousins about a story around their own family and these woods. I'm actually still reading this. I hope to finish it soon. It's been really cool. Like, it's one of those, not like Narnia at all, because this is real life, but there are times where she goes off in her imagination into her stories, and the way that she words things is so beautiful. I am so enjoying this book. I am gathering from it that the little girl has not been happy in her life, but she's starting to learn about becoming happy through her situations as she's connecting with her family. Give Me a Sign is a book that just recently came out. This is about a deaf girl who goes to be a junior counselor at a summer camp for deaf people. What I really, really love about this book, it's written by someone that is deaf, And so she understands how things are in that world completely. There is a bit of a love story throughout it, which is really cute. As someone who was partially deaf for a portion of my life, I could understand so much of this, but then the fact that like I've been speaking without an issue for years and I don't have a hearing aid, but I most likely would have had a hearing aid if things didn't work out for me over time. I started to ask questions to myself. I even asked my mom a question like, hey, would you have learned sign language if I needed to? Because I had started to, and I know like the alphabet and a few words. And my mom's like, yeah, I would have, because there's a situation in this book where her parents are hearing, but she and her brother are not. And it seems like the parents are trying to make them be a part of the hearing world instead of being understanding that their own kids are not in the hearing world and you can't force that on them. So there's so many different perspectives given in this, and it's really well done. I got a little hooked to this. Homeschool bravely. I don't homeschool currently. I homeschooled in the past from the time my oldest was 3 years old through the age of 14. And I was just like, okay, but I want to homeschool again when my baby is a little older. It was like, let me read some homeschooling books just because it sparks it. He'll be 3 before I know it. And I thought this was a really good introduction for people that maybe have never homeschooled or maybe don't even understand homeschooling too well. And it just explains how you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to go by like, oh, well, this person, they seem to know everything and I have to do it that way. And it says how like you could find out on your own how you want to do your own version of homeschooling. I thought it was really good. Float. This is a young adult story. This is about a girl who lives in Alaska, but she goes to visit her aunt who lives in Florida, and she's spending the summer there with her. And in the process, she's going to get a job. She hopefully will make some friends. She really wants people to like her for who she is, but at the same time, she feels like maybe she's too boring to make friends. And back home, she has situations with her own parents. Throughout this book, you have really good characters and friendships. Even the way that she starts to connect with a love interest in this, I thought there was really good communication. And when there was a misunderstanding, there was communication to fill in those gaps. And I think a lot of these stories, they like purposely make drama out of everything and make it extreme. But this one didn't do that. It felt a little more realistic in my opinion. But there were obviously some issues that had to be solved. I thought this was really enjoyable. My one issue with this book, and with Give Me a Sign, both of these books have a lot of bad language. I have a hard time with books that have that. I wish they didn't have the bad language. It kind of ruins books for me. So that was the only thing keeping me from really, really loving it. Besides, I think that the idea of swimming is great, and one of the main characters is a lifeguard, and they also go surfing at one point. It was a fun story. Places We've Never Been. This is also a young adult book. I love this one better than the 3 that I just mentioned of young adult books. This is about a young girl who, after 5 years of not talking to who used to be her best friend, suddenly she's on a road trip with him. The 2 moms are best friends, and they decide to take their kids on a road trip. And while they go to see different sites, the ultimate goal is that she has an interview as well for a college that she wants to attend at some point. So in the process, she has her own best friend at home that she talks to, while she has her best friend that she hasn't talked to in 5 years. She has now seen how different that person is, and she's really upset, and he's also upset, and the 2 of them are just upset at each other. But then all of a sudden they click and they connect. You can see like the hurt that they've had, and they are able to express that better with one another. And the story is just really fun. There are a lot of funny parts in this book. I actually like laughed out loud once in a while. I was like, that was good. The humor is just really good. And what I also like is the main character, they're not really down in the dumps. They don't have this attitude like they don't know who they are. In fact, she believes she knows who she is, and she's confident, and she has positivity throughout her. And I really like that because you don't see that much in these stories anymore. You see these people that have a low self-image, that really are struggling. And while she has her own struggles, she tries to remain positive through those struggles. And I love that. This is The Case of the Peculiar Pink Fan. This is the 4th book of the Enola Holmes mystery series. I have read the first 3 books, and so I've been slowly throughout the year been reading this series. But Enola Holmes, she sees the Lady Cicely is missing. Where is she? So she and her big brother, Sherlock, they're going to solve the mystery together. They don't always do that. Is Cicely being forced to wed against her will? Again, these books are really cute. If you have not read the Enola Holmes books, they're not like amazing, they're not huge, but they're fun. Definitely good for young girls to read. Well, thanks for watching. Now I'll probably do some September books, maybe about education. I don't know what it will be. I hope to do some more reviews in the future. Thanks, guys.